Today, the 7th of November 2022, it really bothers me that up to this day, the world over has not solved the problem of race relations. We are encountering what is known as discrimination from every race in the world over. Today we have this menace, a party called EFF in South Africa. This party is about race. They have done it in a very subtle way, in such a way that people may not understand it, because they are using the very same method that was used in Germany. You remember that during the period of Hitler regime, there was this talk of demonizing the Jews. And someone thinks, if you sit down and think about what caused this demonizing of Jews, we see that Jews in Germany were subjected to discrimination. They were even stripped of citizenship, and they were told to wear. The Third Reich made sure that Jews were demonized. And in South Africa today, we are faced with the same situation where people are using the antics of the Mein Kampf to demonize other inferior or minorities in South Africa, like the Indians, the Colours, the whites. It is going to happen because we hear that everybody, once you come to a political space, they will cry about the fact that whites are owning 80% of the land, and only 13% is owned by blacks, and the rest is just land that is not used by anybody. So that will cause problems in South Africa, and if it is not debated and everybody is at peace with it, that yes, there is an issue of land that has to be sorted out, but there's also an issue of race relations. That is the topic that I want us to talk about. The issue of race relations is that everybody in the world is a racist. The fact that I cannot remember myself going to a funeral of whites or Indians says something about myself. The same thing applies when we have funerals in our area. You will never see Indians or whites attending that funeral. So there is something wrong with the race relations all over the world. It happens. It happened in America during the Second World War. There was the Tuskegee group, it was called the Tuskegee 99. Those were black pilots who had been trained and were ready for combat. But because of discrimination, they were not allowed, even when they were allowed to ultimately, after having gone to court to challenge their discrimination, they were allowed to be part of the army, the US Army, but even then they were not allowed to dine with the other officers, because they were all officers. They were not allowed to dine with them because of their skin color. So the problem of racism is an old problem that it's going to be very difficult to solve. Here in South Africa, we've had a problem when there was these riots where Indians in Phoenix killed blacks. So the EFF is actually using that in order to raise the tensions between races, especially Indians. Indians are in a minority. Indians have suffered for a long time in South Africa. In 1949, Indians were beaten in a cattle manner. In the 1980s, I think around 1983-84, they were beaten in Ananda and chased away to go and settle in Phoenix. So there has been this. I remember in 1980, when 81, when I arrived in KwaZulu-Natal from the Eastern Cape, we went to watch a football match at the King's Park. I think it was Dynamos and Kaizer Chiefs playing final. And after the game, at Umgeni railway stations, some Indians were just waiting for the train going to Phoenix, and they were attacked and beaten for no reason. So, because there was a guy, they were beaten because I think there was one guy who was playing for Dynamos and he was Indian, so they were just beaten. Could be that reason, I'm not sure, but they were beaten. Also, the issue about blacks and Indians, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, is a long drawn tension that needs politicians to call both nations to sit down and sort out their problem. That we have already been under the spell of apartheid, so there's no need for these nations to fight amongst each other. And there's also the issue of Jews in Germany. Jews were subjected to torture. They were murdered. About 6 million Jews were murdered in the whole of Europe. That is now Jews from Poland, from Latvia, from Austria, and from France. All those nations had Jews, and those Jews were subjected to being taken to concentration camps. So we know that Afrikaners were also part of that war, the Second World War. I remember that my own grandfather was part of that war, fighting against Hitler. And the worst thing that was learned by the Afrikaners was the issue of concentration camps. Because when they came back and when they took power in South Africa, the first thing they did was to make sure that blacks are put in what looks like concentration camps. Like they were taken to Soweto, to KwaMashu, to Umlazi, a place meant for only blacks. So that is concentration camps, because even in those areas, up to now, the services were very bad. There was no electricity, and some had water, but it would be a standpipe servicing 20 families. And there were no toilets in other places. People had to build their own toilets. So the infrastructure was not good at all. And these places were only meant to accommodate blacks. So this is the mentality they got from seeing how Jews were treated. So they came back and took power in 1958 after the Second World War, and exactly the same thing that they saw in Europe, they came and applied it in South Africa. So we have lived under those conditions up to this day, because even the government that took over, the ANC government, has done nothing to change the situation. They have not done anything. They've also continued to build same forum houses that were built by National Party in certain areas that are meant for blacks. They failed to build houses amongst white areas. They thought about it. Remember, Minister Sisulu thought of bringing black people to stay, to have houses built in Umhlanga Rocks, but that did not succeed, because there were other people who said, no, it cannot happen, and it did not happen. So now, my worry is that we cannot totally blame Adolf Hitler and people like Goebbels and Heinrich Himmler, the people who were against the Jews, who wanted the Jews killed or thrown away or sent to other places like America. We cannot blame them sometimes when we look at the behavior of the Jews and what they are doing now to Palestinians. And some Jews left Germany and came to South Africa. Jews like Ackermans, Stens, came to South Africa and opened businesses here. And they did not say a word when they saw the very same thing that was done to them being done to blacks. They kept quiet about it. They could not, raise alarm or stop it. They just enjoyed being white and classified as whites and staying with other whites as opposed to staying with blacks. So now you think, was Hitler really wrong? Why was so much hatred against Jews? Where did this hatred come from? And you see what the Jews are doing to the Palestinians today, and you wonder if Hitler was correct or not. And the world has kept quiet when Jews with their covert operations went to places like Argentina, Brazil to go and capture the Nazi war crimes in violation of international law and the sovereignty of those nations. They have done it. People have been taken, abducted from Argentina to go and face trial in Israel. And you wonder as to how did Israel have jurisdiction to try those people, because the best thing that could have been done is for those people to be taken to places like Auschwitz in Poland or Germany or Italy for them to be tried or sentenced for war crimes. But the world kept quiet, and the Jews now are seen to be able to do whatever they want. And one day, another Hitler will be born, because we can see, even up to this day, that the nations are trying to control the whole world, like how Hitler did. The Americans want to control the whole world. They go around and do regime change. The Chinese are in Africa today. They are here selling their products, making Africa a dumping site for their products at the expense of nobody is benefiting. They are the only ones that are benefiting. So this supremacy, race supremacy, is something that is going to be with us for a very long time. And Africans are the worst victims. It happened to whites who are Jews. It also happened to Africans as well in the northern part of Africa, including Egypt, Morocco, Libya, Tunisia, were subjected to this. So it's bad, and we need to find a way to sort it out. Yes, and we need to stop this, these inflammatory talks that are done by the EFF. The EFF has said to some whites that they must start learning to be ruled by blacks. They are all keeping quiet when these political opportunists come and just raise a gap in our political situation, or a problem that we have with race relations. they will use that to amass support, because if you say anything bad about Indians to Africans, obviously they are going to vote for you. If you say anything bad about whites, same thing applies. If you say you are going to chase whites out of the country and throw them in the sea, black people out of poverty will vote for you. And that's not a reason to vote for anyone. These small parties have done nothing. They've been amassing monies. They've got monies to do those higher tents, higher stadiums. That is the money that they should be using to change people's lives, because we're in South Africa and we've got a lot of poor people. We've got no one who's going to help them, no one who's going to create jobs for them. All the people need is somebody who will change their lives, because South Africans are very poor at the moment. So we are making a big mistake of keeping quiet and not stopping these rhetorics where somebody says Africa is one country, there will be no borders in Africa. But the method in which that ambition will be achieved will cause a lot of problems, exactly how Hitler did in Germany. He had this supreme race, which is German, that will rule the whole world, and meaning the lives of the Germans will be better than anybody in the world, because he will be using resources from other countries to change the lives of the Germans. The same thing that will happen when the EFF takes power. It's going to, by force, take over the country, the other countries, and change the lives of South Africans, which is not correct. That is not correct. The best thing that they can do is to change lives for every African in Africa, not prioritize South Africans at the expense of other countries like Zimbabwe, Angola, Congo, Libya, Tanzania, Senegal, or Egypt. If anybody wants to change the lives of Africans, you should change the lives of all Africans and remove the borders that were imposed by the Berlin Conference and negotiate that the Africans can be ruled by one person. Because if you are going to do it by force or by making the referendum like how Hitler did in Austria, he forced the governor there to have a referendum, and that referendum was crooked in such a way that everybody said they want to be governed by Germany, they wanted to be governed by Hitler, which is was a miscarriage of justice, and it caused so much pain, especially for the Jews in Austria. So we should always be aware that these small parties that are coming in now with their rhetoric are not going to do anything better. They are just going to amass wealth for themselves and cause wars, and the warmongers of Europe will come into Africa with the aim of saying United Nations coming to help, because there will be chaos in Africa and they will be coming here to loot. So we should not allow looters to find a gap within the mistakes that will be caused by the political opportunists. These parties are political opportunists unless they do something tangible for the masses that they get support from. As it is now, nothing has been done. It's only rhetoric. The next thing, they will get government through the coalition in 2024, and EFF will say they won't form part of government if they are not made president or deputy president. And that will be the biggest mistake that is going to happen in this country. And South Africans, please wake up. Let us not allow this thing to happen, because it's going to cause us pain. It's going to take us 100 steps back from where we are. We are in a dilemma. The country is fast becoming a failed state. But if the guys in red overalls run this country, There will be chaos and there will be pain and suffering. There will be hunger. This country will be raised to a dust. Be careful. Please do not allow yourself to be thrown into the lion's den. Thank you, South Africa.